in this tutorial today, we are going to be talking about ink wash. I'm going to be using tempera paint, a little bit of water, and I went ahead and I pulled out a variety of brushes so that you can see here I've got more of a flat brush. This is also a flat, but it's a little bit smaller. At one time, this was also a flat that is even smaller. So you can see these are flats. These are both rounds. So the actual bristles create a round shape. This one is much fatter. This one is much finer. So as I paint this, I want to make sure that I am selecting the best brush for the section that I am painting. I wouldn't want to come into a small area with this big brush and try and paint maybe this tiny area right here or right here, because this brush is really too big for that task. But it would be great in some of these larger areas. When I get to a small area, I may decide that a brush of this size would be the one that I want to use. As we approach the ink wash, some of the keys to success in an ink wash painting is controlling not only your paint, but how much water you actually apply with the brush to the paper. So you're trying to find a balance between application of your pigment and how the brush flows on the paper. You don't want to apply too much water at once or the water will pool up on the page. So I'm going to start with a fairly wide brush. I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of bristle straightening out on here. Dry it off. And now I'm going to come over here to my pure paint, and I'm going to just pick a spot anywhere on here, and I'm going to apply pure paint maybe to, let's see, this section right here. So as I paint this, I'm just coming in with this pure paint. And I'm trying to have that brush control in here. And I want to be careful about spreading it onto the table. I don't want to paint right next to this, because if I do, those two wet areas touching will pull paint together and it'll start to blend into one value. So I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just get a little more of a thinner value in here, and keeping it to a larger area, I'm going to go ahead and maybe say I'll paint right maybe here. So each time I have a new area on my paper, I'm trying to apply a different value. So anywhere in this area, it's creating one shape. I'm trying to stick with the same value. I don't want to change my value in that shape yet. There is, as you get more comfortable with the paint, a way that you can start to adjust those values. So I'll show you that here in just a second. So this is my one shape. Even though this whole piece is that one big circle, this is a different section, this is a different section, these are different sections. So as you can see those, I'm going to paint with some different values in those areas. But one of the things I want to do right now is maybe come in with a touch more paint and water and mix that value a little bit more. And maybe I want to do something where I can kind of fade more value on one side. So as it works its way around to my other sections, getting a little sloppy in here. My color might start to fade as I work into the other section of my painting. So as this dries, you're going to see that this darker value kind of fades like a value scale towards a lighter value. And when you're creating these pure tones or dark areas, you can see as this is starting to dry, it's actually the water's evaporating. So what seemed like it might have been a 10 with my initial paint coverage is actually drying and coming out a little bit more like an 8. And as that dries, I'm going to come back in and make it, applying more paint, make it more like a 10 value. On another note, if I'm painting and I have an area that's dry, so once it's completely dry, in a darker area like this, I can come back with my paintbrush and I can lift out some of those areas. So I can lift the value to be a little bit lighter. However, in areas where it's very light, I would not be able to come in with water and really lift this up. It's just going to get soggy because I have to be very careful about how much water I apply. So the key here is don't be in a hurry. You have to allow the paint to dry in stages. So as I'm painting in these areas, I can let this dry. I can come to another area that's not touching this and I can apply more paint. I'm going to keep working my way around. And if I have to, I can always shift my paper. I don't have to keep the paper straight. So I can shift my paper to get the best angle. I don't want to run my hand through paint. So you want to make sure as you're painting this, practice that brush control. If you feel like a brush is getting out of hand, just go ahead and switch brushes. So I'm going to go ahead and show you with a small brush. If I come in and I mostly have pure paint with just a hint of water, I can come into a very small area and notice again, always pulling. I don't want to push. I don't want to scrub as I paint. I want to use just that pulling technique. And again, the key here is to really pull in all of those values from that value scale that we did. So you already have a tutorial video that you can go back to at any time for value with ink wash. And as you're painting these things and you're doing this value in here, each time you see a shape and you want to put value in the shape, consider the different values that you have in the value scale. The key is you don't want to build up your layers while they're wet. You want to let things dry. You can do an initial paint, but then let things dry, because if you don't, again, the paper is going to get really soggy. It's going to start to tear as you're pulling on your paintbrush and wiping the paint through there. And then that's going to be very frustrating for you. So just take your time with it. Really work through, see your values. Paint only dries so fast, so you don't want to waste any time when you're actually painting, but you have to have patience for the paint to dry in areas. Enjoy the task.